Alright guys, welcome to what I think is going to be one of the more important videos in this course. It's about the Delta Slingshot, which is a variation of what you guys may know, the Delta Trap. It's a variation I made about it, and it's been working very well. If you have the TDU footprint, it automatically marks it out whenever a play does show up. I've worked with the devs there, and if you want to get the TDU footprint, you can use Futures Flow 20 for 20% off of it. But pretty much what it's based off of is when there's a huge positive delta candle, in order for a short setup, when there's a huge positive delta candle, and then we get a candle, a red candle closing below the low of the green candle. So here's our low of the green candle, and the red candle closes below it. So it closes down here below the green candle, right, with an extreme amount of delta. And this would signify a short setup. But what we need to see first is preferably a liquidity sweep. If you know about liquidity sweeps, I've talked about it a lot in the channel and in the Discord. Pretty much every single morning I'll send out important levels on ES that I look for, and these are just hourly levels that are significant, probably liquidity lying around there, and I want to see us test that level or test through it, grab that liquidity, and then see this play show up, right? So extreme positive followed by a red candle, but more importantly the second red candle having extreme amount of negative delta closing below the low of the green candle. Now what I usually want to see is it happen in three bars, right? So this is bar 1, this is bar 2, and this is bar 3. The max bars I'm willing to let this play have is 4. So that means that there can be one more red candle, a noise candle in here, followed by the candle closing below it with extreme negative. Now let's say there was another noise candle like this and then it closed below it. I would not take that play. The max amount of bars I want to see is 4. Ideally I like to see 3, right? So that's the short setup. Now let's take a look at the long setup. So once again, we're looking for a sweep of an important level on the hourly chart. So let's say there was an important level right here, and we get we're going down and we test it and we get a 300 positive delta candle. Right before that we have negative 1500 going into the important level. And by the way, what I really like seeing is whenever we have an important level, I like seeing extreme delta going into that level. Many people are trying to play the breakout, and I love trapping breakout traders. It's one of the best things to do in this market. Usually these plays work out very well. And if you have the big lot tracker by TDU and you see a big lot order come in during the slingshot play, it adds extra confluence, right? So we have the extreme amount of negative delta going into the level. We get bar number 2, and then on bar number 3 we get extreme positive closing above the high of the red candle for a long entry, right? So that's the basis of the Delta Slingshot right here. So pretty much the difference between it and the Delta Trap is that we're looking for a close above or below depending on this side of the play. So if it's a short setup, we're looking for a close below the green bar. If it's a long setup, we're looking for a close above the top of the red bar, right? So we're gonna go ahead into the chart and actually give you some examples on the chart. Right, so I have 5 days loaded on my chart. I'm not going to cherry pick any data. We're going to go through every single play in the last 5 days, and we're going to talk about it. So right here at 9:30, we're getting some negative delta. Let's look for the first delta trap setup. This is a setup right here. I forgot to set my filter to around 900 delta. That's the filter I look for. Here's our first setup right here. So we have this is what I call a delta continuation, delta slingshot continuation. So we're already in a downtrend, and we get a short setup during the downtrend. Now I love these setups. Continuations are, I prefer them over reversals, delta slingshot reversals. So we're in a downtrend and we get a delta slingshot continuation because we're getting a short during a downtrend. So we have 968 positive delta. Buyers trying to reverse this huge downtrend, maybe buyer support level, right? We get negative 1000 delta closing below this line right here, right there. That's the bottom of the green candle. We get it closing below, and this ran for some points, 20 points, right? We get another one right here, right? Huge positive delta, 2000 closing below it, and it runs for some points. What's good about this play is that you can see multiple market sweeps come in. So we have huge imbalances right here, right? There's a market sweep, a sell side market sweep coming down and going below that. I talk about market sweeps a lot in the Discord. Now I wouldn't really consider this, depending on what you have your delta trap setting set to. I look for at least 900 positive delta. But if you wanted to consider this a delta slingshot, you can. 866. Personally, I like looking for 950, so I don't really consider this a delta slingshot. Right here we have another one. Right, same delta continuation slingshot going down 9 points. And so let's see if there is anything here positive. Right, there is a one to the long side right here, and that did run for some points. It did take some drawdown, 7 points drawdown. If you put your stop at low a day, you would have been fine, and that ran for 18 points. Right, so let's go on to the next day. All right, I talk about these plays every single day in the Discord, but I'm just trying to clear it up so you guys get a better understanding. So at 9:30 we don't get any play. We come down. I can't really tell. I don't have an hourly chart pulled up, so I can't tell which levels are more significant. I'm not basing these off of hourly levels, so we don't have that confluence. So we're just purely looking at the delta slingshot here. Now we have a delta slingshot continuation to the downside. Obviously, this did not work out. Whenever I see a delta slingshot come in one after the other, so right, we have one coming to the downside, but then we have one coming to the upside, I will immediately switch the position. Now, what's significant about this play? I actually remember talking about this play in the Discord. We did sweep an important level on the hourly chart. We were watching the hourly on the 23 level, so you can see that we perfectly tapped into that 23 level. And what's significant about this play? Well, look here at that big trade indicator by TDU. Once again, if you want it, you can use Futures Flow 20 for 20% off. But it tells us that there was a large order being placed at this area. And then we get, following it, a delta upside continuation. And if you watch the first episode, you know what's significant about this play with the stacked imbalance, right? So we have a stacked imbalance, and this play obviously ran for a lot of points here, 25 points, right? This is a reversal slingshot with the stacked imbalance coming in near lows. Super high quality play. Now we have a slingshot coming to the downside, right? These slingshots have been working amazingly over the last few days. 1,000 positive delta. I can't remember if this was at an important hourly level, but 1,000 positive delta coming in, buyers trying to anticipate higher prices. We get 1,400 negative delta closing below the low of the green candle, and this play runs for some points, 11 points, not bad. And then at 13:57 we get a reversal. A lot of them are showing up here, as you can tell, but this did run for some points as well. Now let's continue to the next day. Right, we're going over every single delta slingshot that shows up. We're not skipping anything. This is not a delta slingshot because this was not extreme positive delta. Like I said, I don't have my settings set to the 950 threshold. But what's actually good about this play is that there was a market sweep coming in after a pump up after open, and we got a huge lot order, and obviously it went down for some points. But where there is a delta slingshot is on this play right here, 1,400 positive delta. And by the way, this isn't a delta slingshot because once again, this isn't extreme negative delta. But we have a delta slingshot right here trapping these buyers on this candle, and this ran for a few points, not too much, around 7 points. Once again, this isn't a delta slingshot, only 700 positive delta, so I wouldn't have considered taking that. Right, and if you are confused about any of these plays, I talked about them every single day in the Discord, but don't be afraid to ask me any questions. There's another delta slingshot here, right? A bit more confluence added to it because we have the big trade indicator on here. It flashed that there's a big trade going on. 1,000 positive delta. This negative 1,500 closing below the low of the green candle. It took some drawdown, 6 points drawdown. This would be a good time to talk about the stop and profit target that you could use. So if you're doing an evaluation, this strategy is very, very good for evaluations because you can do a 4-point stop loss and 4-point take profit of 1-to-1. You will be profitable in the long run. you will get stopped out more often because you're using a 4-point stop loss. What I like to do is put it above swing highs or high days, low days. So, right in the day before we found that reversal, I would put it at the lower day. But I wouldn't take this play and put it at higher day, because if we were to take this play, that would be 11-point stop. So what I'll do is put it above the swing high, which would be right here. So running 7.5 point stop, and I would go for 8 points as TP1, or I would put my pivot as my take it profit wherever the pivot is. It just depends on the play in the day, right? Once again, this isn't a delta slingshot because no extreme positive delta. But those are usually my take profits and stop losses. I don't ever do the 4-point take profit and 4-point stop loss, but if you're doing an evaluation, it is good to do that. You can minimize drawdown very well with that. The win rate is pretty good with this strategy, so it's not a bad strategy for evaluations. But like I said, I prefer to use a bit of a wider stop and a bit of a wider take profit. This is after market close, so we're not going to go over this. Now here we are at open. So this was a reversal sign right here. If you're in the Discord, you know why based on the delta. I'm not going to talk about it in this video. But the first delta slingshot that shows up is right here. So this is a play I talked about today, right? So we have 2400 lot order. At the time of it, I couldn't tell if it was a buy or sell. I told you guys if 31 holds, it was probably a buy, and obviously 31 held. And what made me have more confluence behind, thinking this was a buy is that there was a delta trap that showed up. Delta slingshot, sorry, right? So this was the high of the red candle. This was 3,000 positive delta closing above the extreme negative. And then we have confluence backed by this huge lot order that came in. Now, when you see these huge lot orders, right, 2,400 against the 0 on the ask, these whales will always make it difficult to decipher their trades. Usually it's the opposite. So whenever I see it coming on the bid side, I always think buy, just because the whales like to trick retail into thinking that it could be a sell, and they'll make them, oh, I see a huge order being transacted on the bid, it has to be a sell. But it's not always the case, right? But when we see this delta slingshot come in, obviously that ran for some points, around 13 points. Now this play was super good. This was an hourly level we were watching, and buyers were trying to anticipate the breakout. What happened? A stacked imbalance coming in at the highs on candle 1, candle 2, a volume showing up at the top of candle 1 and at the top of candle 2, showing that there's even more trap buyers going on. Super high quality play. We went into a short here, and that ran about 10 points, and we took profits at 33, right at the pivot point. All right, and our stop was 6.75 points. And then there was another delta slingshot right here, negative 1300 delta. This wasn't an important hourly level, which is why I didn't want to take it, but it was on the breakout of a super strong range, which made it a bit more high quality. Personally, I didn't take this play, but you can see if you enter this play, literally just huge profits, 41. And then yeah, this got a bit tricky right here, playing it, because it was a huge move up and it was a bit choppy here, right? So we have a delta continuation. The pivot was right around 78. So to that pivot, it was about 5 points. And obviously, if you held it, you would have taken a loss. But playing the long side after a huge move up is a bit more risky. There is a short setup that showed up, and what made it a bit more high confluence is that there's a 68 ratio. Remember, anything above 30 means that it's potentially bearish. Anything below 0.7 or 0.1 is typically bullish. That play went about 6 points, not too bad. But like I said, after a huge move up, it was a bit of a choppy price action. But those are the last 5 days. May have went a bit fast, only because I talk about this so much in the Discord. You guys should pretty much have a good understanding of Delta Slingshot already. But for anyone new who's watching this video, that's the premise of Delta Slingshot. Right, so let me just find a really quick example. Right, so we're looking for something with huge positive delta, like this candle right here. Candle 1 can be It doesn't have to be huge negative. It can be negative 300. That's fine. But what really matters is that candle 2 has huge negative closing below the bottom of the green candle for a short, and then it'd be the exact opposite for a long play. But that's all I have for this video. So hopefully you guys get a better understanding of the delta slingshot play. Once again, if you're trading on the footprint, I really recommend TDU. I work with them very closely, so whenever I need something on the footprint, I can just ask them and they add it in, just like this delta slingshot. It works really well, and I'll see you guys in the next video.